Hi there, and welcome to Ian's Engage channel. I'm Ian. In a previous video I showed how I'd investigated and fixed an unexpected derailment issue when running a rake of small wagons across a series of first radius S-curves. As usual, I received some excellent feedback, with many people mentioning that metal wheels would be much better than the plastic ones that were fitted to the Peco ferry wagons involved in the investigation. Now, as Peco had just announced a range of new metal wheel packs, I decided to invest in a couple of boxes, and in this video we'll see if they make a difference. Lots of people also mentioned that having right-hand points would be more prototypical for the fan of sidings that I used, and while I had my reasons for implementing the test track the way I did, I decided to change it to something that was more representative of something you may find in the real world. But first, the wheels. Here I am changing all of the plastic wheels on my ferry wagons for the new Peco metal disc type wheels. I thought I was getting some really good footage as I did this, but the wagons and wheels are so small and my hands are so big, it's almost impossible to make out what's going on. So sorry about that. What you can see is that the plastic wheels are fairly simple to remove, with only slight pressure being required to pop them out of their axle boxes. The metal wheels were also easy enough to install. As long as you got the point of the axle into the corresponding axle box, then its opposite end also snapped into place very easily. You can see from the speeded up footage that on a few occasions I missed the hole, and the whole axle became wedged in the underframe of the wagon, and on a couple of occasions it was quite frustrating to remove it. On the whole though, fitting the metal wheels was easy, and the wagons definitely ran more freely once they had been installed. So, to the new test track. Here's what the test track looked like during my previous investigation, with the entry into the sidings being supplied by a set of left-handed points. Unfortunately, I'd already changed the test track before adding the metal wheels, so I couldn't test like for like, but other than the positions and directions of a couple of points, the test tracks were pretty much identical. The new test track still had 3 sidings, but there was now a head shunt facing the first siding. Also, the final siding was now provided by a right-hand point, which saved space and eased one of the S-curves. So now that the test track was more prototypical, would the wagons run into the sidings more easily? Let's find out. Here are the metal wheel shod wagons being pushed into the siding without a load. And of course, they derail, as even though the metal wheels are slightly heavier than the plastic ones, they aren't heavy enough to keep the wagons on track. So, out come the small copper screws again, 3 per wagon, and we're back up to optimal weight. Oh, that was a surprise. Why didn't that work? This setup was supposed to be better, wasn't it? I tried again and again with lighter and heavier loads, but I couldn't get the wagons to navigate into the sidings without derailments happening every single time. This led to a lot of head scratching and some top-level pondering. Was there a problem with the metal wheels? I checked the back-to-back values of the new metal wheels, and they were consistent with the metal wheels of the Dapple dogfish wagons and the plastic wheels of the Peco box vans, all being a fraction under the 7.5mm mark. So I decided to push the Dapple dogfish wagons into the siding. And guess what? They also derailed about 90% of the time. Just to make sure this was still a pushing issue, I also tried pulling the wagons into the siding. As expected, the wagons negotiated the track work without fail. So, this was obviously a different type of derailment issue than the one I'd investigated previously. It was still an issue with the couplers being in compression, but the Dapple dogfish wagons had very flexible NEM pocket couplings and hadn't even come close to derailing in my previous tests. I went back and scrutinised the track work and ran the wagons back and forth dozens of times. What was blatantly obvious was that the derailments were happening on the back-to-back points. The only fixed axle rolling stock I could get to navigate the back-to-back points with 100% success rate were small wheelbase wagons like these box vans. I couldn't see any other way of fixing this other than modifying the test track, so that's what I did. I decided to place a small straight piece of track that was a little longer than a ferry wagon between the back-to-back points, which would ease the S-curve. This would also stop the wagons from running up against the switch rails of both points simultaneously, which was the issue I suspected was causing the derailment. I had absolute confidence that this would solve the problem and I'd be able to run the wagons into the siding with 100% success rate. So, here we go again. First I pushed the dogfish wagons back into the sidings. And, of course, the manoeuvre was successful. Next up were those troublesome ferry wagons. Here they come. What the? Why did that happen? Did anyone else expect this to fail? Well, I wasn't giving up. I figured that more weight was required, so added an extra copper screw to each wagon. Now, this was an absolute catastrophe for the little Hunslet, as the train now became too heavy to pull up the incline. So, enter my trusty Class 33. This had no problem with the weight of the train, but could it be pushed back into the sidings? Steady as she goes. Here she comes. Yes, success! Of sorts. Both the dogfish and ferry wagons could now be pushed into the sidings, but at a cost. Adding more weight to the ferry wagons has prevented lighter locos from pulling them up my 3% incline. I guess it's all a compromise, but have we learned anything from these investigations? I initially began investigating derailment issues based on what I thought were problems with having multiple short radius S-curves in close proximity to each other. While I still think that these S-curves are part of the problem, I now believe that the points are the main culprits causing the derailments when rolling stock is pushed over them. Obviously, derailments occur for many reasons, but in the two cases I've investigated so far, I think they've effectively been caused by the location and orientation of set track points within the track plan. N-gauge track design is obviously a tricky business that requires plenty of thought before committing your design to the baseboard. This may be quite a specific situation, but if you intend to push trains containing longer wheelbase stock over combinations of set track points, it would probably be best to avoid the situations I've highlighted here, although I know that won't always be possible. Easing curves and separating points by introducing small sections of straight track seems like a sensible solution, but it's one that eats up valuable space and reduces siding lengths. And as seen here, it still doesn't solve the problem for all rolling stock. Using streamlined points instead of set track points would definitely remove some of the issues, but would bring a whole set of other issues, such as working with flexible track, which can be quite daunting for a beginner. I'm really glad that I've performed all of these tests, as it has alerted me to a problem I've designed into the Ledgetown Quarry Marshalling Yard area. I have quite a few set track points in this area, including a pair that are back to back that will definitely need separating. I also have a complicated arrangement of set track points on entry to Shelfington Goods Yard, which will also probably need some form of modification. So it's back to the drawing board, I guess. Okay, so that's about it for this update. If you've got any hints, tips, useful tools or techniques to pass on to a beginner in N-gauge modelling, or if you simply want to say hello, then please do so in the comments section. Anything and everything you've got to say will be greatly appreciated. In the meantime, Thanks ever so much for watching. Hopefully I'll have another update on my progress soon. Bye.